Jeremy and Staci, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
I rarely get to have a husband and wife together on the show, so this is fun that we have two guests sitting in the same computer, same microphone.
Yeah, it's fun for us too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was so interested when I saw that this book that I just read, The Preserver's Garden, was written by a husband and wife team. I'm curious what your journeys have been like to becoming, the preservation experts that you are today.
Well, it's been a process. So we've been married 21 years, and our first vegetable garden together was that first year, probably right before we got married. And it was not a preservation garden. It's a regular, normal garden, just a little
4x8 raised bed,
right.
I think is what we had.
And somehow we've just continued and grown from there. We have 6 kids now to feed, so that has influenced a lot of our desire to grow more food and to preserve the food so that we could, lower that grocery bill all year.
Yeah, and another key motivator, I think, is just food quality. Once you grow your own food, things that you buy become kind of second quality. You realize, those tomatoes I grow taste a lot better than the ones I buy at the store. How do I enjoy those longer?
I think every gardener hits that moment where, you have your first garden or your second garden where you plant your tomato plants, and you hit that moment like in the middle of August where you're like, I have too many tomatoes. Like there's no way I planted too many tomatoes, or I planted too many cucumbers. I'm never going to eat all these cucumbers. And then it's kind of heartbreaking if you ever see the fruits and vegetables that you work so hard to grow, like go to waste on your countertop just because you don't get around to eating them. Or gifting them to people that then they go to waste at your friend's house, if they don't know how to eat them. So I think it's natural, as you garden year after year, that you start thinking more towards the preservation of it. So you guys have been gardening for 21 years. When did you start getting into preserving your garden harvests?
What year is it? 15, 16
About 15
years ago?
Okay. When we started just doing a little bit of light canning.
Right.
And it just kind of, ramped up from there. Canning, freezing. We got our first freeze dryer in 2021.
That really
that changed the game.
Yeah, things really took off after that. It gave us a lot more time to preserve everything because the way it works, it allowed us to catch up so that we could grow more and preserve even more because there was this other machine doing it for us. I mean, we still had to do the prep work, but...
And your book says that you're located on a farm. Are you a farm that's open to the public, or you just call it a farm because it's your homestead and you're growing the majority of your own food?
Both. So we actually do open to the public. We're in Missouri. We're an agritourism destination. So we have a few things that we do. We actually have a you-pick flower farm. So people come to our farm to pick their own flowers. And that's kind of where we started, and also in 2020. With opening to the public. We do things with our farm animals. People come out and see our animals. We have your traditional farm animals: pigs, goats, cows, ducks, chickens, sheep. I knew I was missing one. All the animals. And then we are working last year and this coming year on growing more produce, not just for our own family, but a true market garden to be able to sell produce at local farmers markets and off of the farm.
Wow, that's amazing. So how large is your farm? Walk me through the layout of it.
Well, I always like to say we're doing a lot with a little. We have just under 12 acres.
Okay.
So, and that's all those animals take up the majority of it. The flowers
and the gardens and the berries together is about a half an acre.
Okay.
So it's condensed.
That's the U-Pick station.
The U-Pick and our vegetable garden. It kind of all flows together, and we have 4 greenhouses now also.
Wow.
Small ones. They're greenhouses for plant starts. We don't grow things in them in the winter because I need a break.
Yeah. Winter is our break time.
Yeah. So how much grocery shopping do you guys have to do? I'm curious. I mean, looking through your book, you have the quintessential pantry filled with mason jars and all sorts of stuff. When you think homesteading, pantry, preservation, pantry of your dreams. Like you have that. So I'm curious, as you are kind of the extreme version of us as we start our preservation journey, how often are you going to the grocery store and what are you still buying versus have you eliminated your need to buy potatoes or your need to buy certain things? Like, what does that look like?
So produce, yes,
Mm-hmm.
we are pretty sufficient on produce. And
We buy some things. But we don't buy them like every week. We buy like we don't have enough. Our apple trees died. The sheep ate them. It's the whole thing.
Mm.
So we buy bulk apples from another local farm during the season and preserve those. So like we didn't grow them, but we aren't buying them every
Got
week
it.
at the grocery
right,
store. It's not that kind of shopping. It kind of changes the way you do everything. Like if we run out of potatoes, we buy them in a 50-pound crate, and order them in. And we don't go to the grocery store and buy a 10-pound bag.
part
It's
of
a
that's
different system.
yeah, and part of that's by virtue of being a large family.
Right,
If you have
yes.
8, it does change our perspective, but we really don't buy much in the way of produce on a, like she said, on a weekly basis, just to help augment what we want to preserve for the year. And we do that we try to do it either going through other farms locally, trading, do a lot of trading with other people.
Yeah,
We have
that's
an
so
excess
cool.
of this, we'll trade you for that. At the grocery store, though, to answer your question, we do buy convenience food still. We do still buy grains.
We don't buy them from the store because
We don't buy them from the store. We do buy in bulk,
Yeah.
but those are things that we don't grow, obviously. But convenience foods like crackers and
Right.
occasional bag of
Processed
chips.
things.
Yeah.
processed things. The guilty pleasures.
Right.
But
You still
Chocolate.
have kids. You need a little
We have to
candy
yeah,
buy
or a little,
chocolate.
right,
coffee.
right.
Yeah, coffee.
Totally,
You can't grow
totally.
coffee.
Wow, that is wild. That's especially, and you have to grow a significant amount of food in order to feed a family of 8 year round.
Yes,
Yeah, and we don't eat out. Like,
at all, ever. Like
yeah,
it's not a thing.
we just don't.
Wow. Wow. So I'm curious, as you've gone through this process of from your first garden to now your first garden, which is a preserver's garden, in your opinion, what is the difference between, a normal, my garden outside where there's been no thought of preservation and being a preserver's garden, the name of your book?
The biggest difference is probably in thinking about how many plants you're going to have and how much each plant will produce before you decide what you're growing. Like we and I make those decisions different ways. Like we think, okay, I could get what we need for all of us out of 30 tomato plants, but that would be a lot of work because I'd have to make sure every plant was producing to its like maximum potential. So if we had less space, which our vegetable part of our garden is about 3,000 square feet. But so like if I'm looking at this going like, okay, I can fit 100 tomato plants in here, and then I don't have to worry about like each individual plant's health quite as much. So I plant all of them, and then we have enough, and I don't have to worry about it. And we can always preserve more than we need for that year. If there's more, you put up more, and it can last 2 years instead of 1 year. And that way, if you have a bad year, you have a buffer.
And how do you do those calculations? Is it based off of just in the previous year we had enough tomatoes, or in the previous year we
Yes.
didn't have enough tomatoes? So
It's mainly experience, and you have to experiment with your climate and soil and like how much work you want to put into it, how much time you have. You want to make sure because that's why we increased from 30 tomato plants to 100, because I was growing the seedlings anyway, because we also sell seedlings in the spring. It's a whole nother business. So I have the plants, so I planted more, and then I don't have to worry about like weather fluctuations or anything. I didn't have time to prune this or watch for these bugs or whatever. There's still enough to go around.
And also, like you said, experimentation with what you eat. When we before we really went down this journey kind of hardcore, we still ate out a couple times a week. That really changes the dynamic. But when you think about how much money you save versus the effort you put into the plants, there's a calculation and a kind of a risk reward thing that's different for everybody. But for us, there's also the aspect for us of some food allergies that drove us to doing more of this. That's a whole other topic. But when you don't eat out, your food consumption at home goes up. And it becomes a lot easier when you don't just say, oh, let's just order pizza tonight. We used to do that a lot. Now that we don't do that, it's more predictable what we need, what we have to grow, what we have to preserve, what we need on the shelves to last through an entire year, and ideally have a year in reserve on most things.
I will never forget when I moved from 500 square feet in New York City to 5 acres in the Catskills. We had a long move. It was in the middle of the winter. It started raining. Like my husband and I were exhausted. We moved to this log cabin in the woods and we were city folk. So we had this long move. We were exhausted on the couch. We didn't open our food boxes yet. And we were like, let's just order in. Like what's around here that can be ordered. And we opened Seamless. We opened Uber Eats. We opened all the apps. Not one restaurant delivered. And that moment, like we looked at each other and our lives kind of changed because we were like, oh my gosh, we were people who would order delivery in New York City like 3 times a week. And all of a sudden we were looking at each other being like, we have to completely change our lifestyle. Even for us, it was, we have to go grocery shopping more. Like it was the middle of the winter.
Right.
I wasn't gardening yet. But when you have that access to delivery removed, it is wild how your approach to food changes and your food waste. Like we also started composting because we just made so much food waste when you're cooking 3 meals a day at home. It's just a totally different, I kind of wish the experience on everyone, frustrating at points, but you really get connected to the food chain in a different way.
Absolutely. And you really appreciate your food a lot more whenever, most people appreciate their food and the fact that they pay money for that food. And that's impactful. But when you're paying for it with hours and sweat, it means a whole different thing. When our kids eat half their plate and want to throw the rest away, it's a different conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
we're not doing
doing
this.
this.
You need to make better choices. And it's a
Don't
different
take so
calculus.
much next time.
Yeah.
But we also have pigs and chickens, so like we hardly compost anything anymore.
Right.
It all
That's
goes to
nice.
some animal.
That's
So
the
at least we can think,
next
okay,
level.
yeah, it's making us eggs or it's making us bacon. It's
Yeah.
a big circle.
Yeah. Yesterday, our oldest son decided he wanted cereal. Well, okay, let's have a talk. And we gave him a recipe, and he made his own granola, baked it, and had it for breakfast this morning, and was very happy with it.
Wow.
And I was really happy with the fact that he went through the process of preparing food in advance. It was a life lesson that wasn't just, go open up a box. It
Go
is.
get some honey nut
And I don't
Cheerios.
even think he thought of the box at this point.
Yeah, he didn't even think of the box.
Because I had made cereal like that before, so he just was like, oh, okay, this is where cereal comes from. And I'm like, oh, nice.
Wow,
Yay.
that's amazing.
Like,
Yeah, there seems to be, so obviously with your kids, like that's an incredible benefit, teaching them the power of real food. What are the other benefits you've noticed your family has experienced since really taking preserving seriously?
I mean, food security is huge. Like we don't have to worry about, oh, we forgot, this ingredient or whatever. We have it, and we can figure it out with something else if we need that.
And along with food security is, we still pay attention and notice that food prices rise and,
Right.
the world around us, hermits. But
we know what's happening.
having some insulation from that does help.
Mm-hmm.
It's peace of mind. I'd say another thing that kind of tangent to your question is being able to help share that with people is really fulfilling, whether it's our book, whether it's people that come to our farm and just want to learn more about it. I mean, by no means would we call ourselves experts, but we've done this a lot more than other people. So being able to share that with people has been really cool. Just changing people's perspective a little bit. Maybe they're going to eat out 2 times a week less than they would have before and have higher quality food as a side effect.
Yeah.
As part of this, all the stuff we preserve, it's ready to eat more than things you would buy from the grocery store. Like half your prep work is already done when it's in those jars. Most of the canned things you can dump them out, heat them up, and you're eating. You don't have to go through the process of peeling and chopping and all of that because you already did that. Like when you're preserving it, it's more work, but then it's less work later.
Meaning you're like making the chili and then canning the chili so it's stable, shelf stable.
Right.
So then
Or even like side dishes or like single
The kind
things.
of dichotomy that we have is that when we're really busy in the summertime, food prep takes longer because we're making fresh food and taking it from field to plate, versus in the wintertime when we have more time, we're eating off the shelves where it's already half prepped, and food prep takes less time. Haven't quite
Like
figured out how to
how to balance that.
change that balance over
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So, what do I have to think about if I've had a garden for a year or two and I want to start, this is airing at the end of 2025, New Year's resolution 2026, I want to start preserving more. What are the things I need to really start thinking about?
Probably like growing more. And an easy one to start with is like bush beans, because
Okay.
they don't take up very much space. And like if you would normally grow 15 plants or 10 plants or something and then just pick off those and eat them, if you grow 50 or 100, it doesn't take that much more space because you can plant them 2 to 3 inches apart, just really cram them in there. And then they make all their beans like pretty much at once. So you can take those, and the easiest way for most people to preserve them is you blanch them and freeze them, and like a vacuum bag would be ideal. But if you don't have a vacuum bag, then use a regular bag and push the air out. It's not the end of the world.
Our preferred method on green beans is to freeze dry them.
Right. You don't have a freeze dryer. Freezing them is the next best thing. And then you have green beans in your freezer, and they taste like summer.
Yeah, that was one of the first things we preserved was cherry tomatoes. And my husband took a Ziploc bag, laid the tomatoes flat on a baking tray, and then he took a straw and sucked the air out of the Ziploc bag with a straw. It was so funny. But that's definitely the lo-fi way to do it. So beans, okay, so beans are good. Yeah, like when you're thinking about the preserver's garden, are you thinking about the starches, the things that you're really going to need in the winter, like the beans, the potatoes, the onions? When I think of my garden, I think of tomatoes. That's all I care about. But I feel like tomatoes aren't even the most important thing. So what are the plants that you focus on, I guess?
For our family, we do a little of everything. We don't just have one big focus. If you were to ask us that question, our default answer is probably going to be tomatoes, because it's one of our favorite foods. Salsa, tomato sauce, canned tomatoes, tomato soup. If you have a freeze dryer, freeze-dried cherry tomatoes, cut them in half and freeze-dry them.
It's like candy.
It's like candy. And you put them on
Wow.
salad, it's like a crouton with amazing flavor. Anyway, we do potatoes, we do beans, a lot of fruit.
We do a lot of onions.
A
too,
lot of
and,
onions.
And garlic.
Yeah.
And dry beans and green beans, both of them. But a lot of what we focus on is not only what we eat, but what is easy for us to grow in our climate. So you've got to look at what you can do with the environment you have and the time you have.
Yeah, okra
sort of
is another
stuff.
one
Yeah,
we grow
okra
a lot of because it gets really hot here, and okra
does
tends
really
to
well.
thrive here. If you're in Minnesota or Canada, okra probably won't be high on your list. But, it would start with what you can grow, and start with what you'll eat. Think about what your family likes. If you don't consume it, there's no point in growing it.
But there's also, like, we have really expanded what we eat based on what we can grow. Like, we never would have bought the amount of okra that we now consume at the grocery store. Like, there's no way. We would not have gone out and sought that out. But if anybody's ever grown okra, you've grown 2 or 3 plants, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this okra? We grow 40, because you can put it up.
How do you
and
preserve
you can eat
it? What do you do with it?
we mostly freeze dry it. But you can dehydrate it and use it in a really similar way if you don't have a freeze dryer. And you can also freeze it.
And use it as like
you
a
can also
side
pickle
dish.
it too. But we put it in other things. Like, you can, if you bake dehydrated okra, you can put it in like your soup, and it thickens it, like in a mixed veggie stew or something. Like, we eat a lot of mixed vegetables because we have all these vegetables, and who wants to eat one at a time?
Veggie stir fry is pretty much a part of every meal. And in the winter, that means we're rehydrating green beans, okra, squash. We haven't mentioned squash and zucchini.
Lots of summer squash.
Lots of summer squash, onions, and some bell peppers. You rehydrate those, put them in a clean stir fry, and it's a side dish that there's not a day goes by that we don't eat that.
So I was interested in your book that there are 7 different ways of preserving that you guys kind of detail in depth. If I wanted to like take my next steps next year, and I'm a big proponent of taking small steps every year and try, instead of being like, I'm going to be like Jeremy and Stacy next year and try and like just do what you do. Would you recommend I choose like one plant, like beans or like tomatoes, and learn how to preserve that one plant maybe in different ways? Or would you suggest that I choose one method of preservation and then grow plants based on that? So like, to take, do you understand what I'm asking? Like, how do I put my foot in the pool? Like, how do I put my toe in the pool in a strategic way?
Usually, what I tell people is to take something they're already growing too much of, or that they know they can grow more than they can eat, and figure out how to preserve that.
Okay.
Like, no, I have too many green beans. What should I do?
Most people who garden have that one thing or two things that
Yeah.
they can say, I'm really good at growing tomatoes, or I'm
Right.
really good at growing whatever. Start with that and then focus on a preservation method. And the cool thing about preserving food, there's not one way to preserve anything. That was one of the hardest and easiest parts about writing this book, is that you can preserve most of these foods in multiple different ways. The question of which method you choose and which method you go with is determined by your goals. What do you want your outcome to be? If you're preserving green beans for a stir fry, freezing them, blanching and freezing, or freeze drying if you have a freeze dryer, are ideal. If you're preserving them so you can have green bean casserole at the Thanksgiving dinner, then maybe pressure canning is the way to go. It just depends on how you like to consume the food and what you're comfortable with doing. So there's no wrong answer to get started. I would say it's more of the, how do you eat an elephant? It's just take one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Just try something and know that if it didn't work, try something else.
Talk to me about freeze drying. You're obviously on the freeze drying train. So
Definitely.
what makes freeze drying so great?
So the main thing, I mean, I was trying to compare it to canning the last time. I was like, with canning, mainly canning, people are nervous. That's the big one. And there was like lots of steps and rules. With freeze drying, so like for the same green beans that you would have to go through the whole pressure canning thing, you literally just chop them up and put them on the tray and slide them in there and push go. And then it comes out like a freeze-dried green bean, which you can eat just as a snack. It'd be better if you put salt on them first, but
Dip them in ranch
you
dressing.
dip them in ranch dressing, or you can just pour. We do hot water on green beans, right? Like there's a whole
water.
there's a whole system we've come up with what temperature water rehydrates which thing. But so if you have your green beans in the jar, you pour boiling water in them, let them sit for 10 minutes, drain off the water, and it's like having thawed green beans.
Are they still
out of the
crunchy?
freezer. They're not
No.
like they're like if you had frozen them and thawed them.
Okay.
So they're the same as like buying a bag of frozen green beans from the store. It's
Wow.
that's how they turn out, but without all the
And
and
they're
they're
shelf-stable.
shelf-stable. It's
Wow.
magical.
The biggest thing about benefit of freeze drying is that it doesn't cook the food versus canning. Either water bath canning or pressure canning cooks your food because it has to get it up to a temperature to kill bacteria and then come down and create that seal. Freeze drying doesn't do that. It freezes and then removes moisture, and moisture is what grows bacteria. It's what causes food to spoil. It's basically a fancy way to remove that moisture.
Without losing the texture that you lose when you dehydrate things.
Right. You do lose some texture because it freezes.
Right.
And when you
Right.
freeze anything,
It changes the
Damage.
cell.
the cells are
Yeah.
modified by the freezing.
Can you run us through the 7 different modes and maybe just some pluses and minuses of each one, so as people are listening and maybe evaluating which route they want to take, they kind of know ahead of time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that comes down to the type of food, because you don't, you can't pickle spinach necessarily, but
Right.
it is a method. I guess you could, but that'd be weird. So salting is something that historically was a really huge way to preserve food before a lot of the more modern conveniences. Honestly, the only foods that we salt are meats for
Okay.
jerky.
Turkey
Or bacon, but meat. And the book focuses on produce, not meat, so we don't really get into that. But we do salt meats. Salting, your whole purpose in salting is, again, to remove moisture and make it shelf-stable. That's the whole reason jerky was invented, is a way to keep that meat longer. It's the whole reason people had salt pork or bacon was it kept that meat fresh longer. You can do that with a lot of different vegetables, but honestly, super salty, veggies,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
not super appealing.
So wouldn't necessarily go there. You get into things like fermenting and pickling.
Yes.
You're using some of those old methods. When I think of fermenting, I think kimchi, I think
Sauerkraut.
sauerkraut. Those are great ways without necessarily oversalting the food to preserve it in a more natural way. You're removing that liquid, but you're replacing it with good bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
With you're replacing bad
Yeah.
bacteria with good bacteria.
And it's easy, but it's another one of those that kind of scares people.
Yeah. When you think people have
Like,
been
cucumbers are a really easy way to start. Sauerkraut's also.
krauts,
Because you know what it's supposed to taste like, and if it doesn't taste like that, don't eat it.
yeah.
Right.
If it tastes right, you did it right.
I'm a big fan of kimchi because you can make it out of literally almost anything. Your cabbage, bok choy, radishes, cucumbers, carrots. I mean, about anything can be turned into it, and it's so good for you. It becomes not shelf stable per se, but at least refrigerator stable for months.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can combine your methods. We've started taking kimchi that we've made and freeze dry it, so you end up with chips
Cool.
that are just like a good snack food.
Yum. Who needs potato
Yeah.
chips when you're making all these
Exactly.
cool green bean and kimchi chips? So
True
then,
story.
yeah, fermentation and also pickling. So pickling is big. I feel like that's a big first start for people.
It is.
Everybody wants to like give people jars of their own pickles.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's another one that's really easy, and it's really hard to mess up pickles, especially when you're doing the vinegar brines. That makes it really safe.
Yeah.
It's really I don't know, it's just easy.
And fermented pickles are another thing that are super easy. You just put your cucumber slices into
It's a saltwater brine and some dill and whatever seasonings you're using, and you let it sit for like 5 days, 6 days. It depends on how warm your house is, and they'll start tasting like pickles.
Yeah.
and they're really good for you. They're high in
Yeah.
probiotics
And then you
Yeah.
can keep them in the fridge
and they stay
another
crunchy.
6 months. Yeah, they do stay crunchy when you ferment them, and where pickling and water breath canning your pickles can get a little soggy. It's more challenging.
And you mentioned like when your husband used the straw to suck the air out of the bag of cherry tomatoes. There are so many gadgets out there now, whether just at your local kitchen store or on Amazon, that can do some of that stuff that 20 years ago even would have required a large financial investment, but now a little vacuum sealer, you can come up with one for $20,
Oh my
$25
gosh, yeah.
probably, or a vacuum attachment for a what do you call it, the little food saver deals. For fermenting, the lids that can just go on top of a mason jar, they're little silicone lids that will allow gases to escape but not come back in.
Yeah,
Super
fermentation
expensive
lids.
fermentation lids. They'll last forever. Whereas, several years ago, you needed to have, a big crock, and we still use the crock method. It's really, really cool to have, and you can do a lot at once, but it's not a necessity. Most of these things, there are gadgets out there for sale that can help
Make
you
your
do
life
this
easier.
super easy and pretty
Yeah.
inexpensively.
Totally. When you go back to thinking about salting meat, that was their only option a while back, and now we're like freeze drying and sous videing, things. What about canning? Because that definitely feels like the first real like official foray into this. So what are your recommendations for people who are curious about canning?
Before you
Definitely.
start, first thing, don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Start with water bath canning,
Okay.
because pressure canning is a whole nother situation. And I can understand why it makes people nervous. It's not as scary as it sounds, but it does make people nervous. So start with water bath canning and get your I don't know, jellies made or something. And usually I say to start with applesauce or some kind of jelly or jam if you have the fruit available. But applesauce is really easy because you don't even have to add sugar to it. Like, it's literally just cooked, smashed up apples. And then you put them in the jar and you can water bath them because they are naturally acidic. And I don't know, it's a good place to start and be like, look what I did.
Yeah, and the pickles that we talked about a minute ago are pretty simple.
Yeah, the vinegar pickles.
They're vinegar pickals. They're not... The biggest thing to worry about with water bath canning is your pH level. So if you're using things that are vinegar-based
Or naturally acidic.
or naturally acid, you've got nothing to worry about. The other thing that is probably not approved to say on the canning world, but generally, if it fails, you're going to know.
Right.
That lid, if you pressure can it and that lid seals,
And you take off the rim.
take off
Always
the
remove
rim.
your rim.
As long as it stays sealed, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
If that lid pops off, throw it away.
Yeah.
If it pops off immediately,
Put it in the refrigerator.
put it in the refrigerator and consume it quickly. If it comes off in your pantry, then that's your safety valve. It lets you know, hey, this didn't work out. Bacteria got in there. Throw it out. It happens to all of us.
That's why you remove the rim, so you don't create the false seal and make it so you can't tell that the lid came off.
Yeah.
And this is the same reason why you don't stack jars without a layer in between them. Like they get like a layer of cardboard, and then you only stack as much as is below. So if you have a pint, you stack a pint on top of it, or a half pint, but you don't put a quart on top of a pint because it's too much weight.
It'll cause it to reseal potentially, and then hide the fact that there's bad bacteria in there.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. That's important.
Yeah.
Then we talked about freeze drying. We didn't talk about dehydrating, because dehydrating you can do with an oven on low temps, right? Little more. My husband has a bread proofer, which also is like, 114 degrees. So we've dehydrated stuff before in his bread proofer. What do you recommend for dehydrating?
Our kids love fruit leather. We get extra bananas, berries, things like that. If bananas go on quick sale at the grocery store, because obviously we don't grow bananas, we bring them home. We'll make a batch of fruit leather. We've even got a picture in the book where we've made it in the car before in the summertime. You can take your puree, lay it out, and put it on the dash of a hot car on a hot day, and it'll dehydrate without any cost.
That's cool.
You can also do full fruit pieces.
And herbs are another big one.
Herbs.
But most of the things that we dehydrate, besides the herbs are, dehydrated herbs, everyone uses those. But most of the other things we dehydrate, we eat dehydrated. We don't try to rehydrate them because it takes a long time. Like compared to freeze drying, it takes much longer to rehydrate dehydrated things to get them to not be chewy anymore.
Got it. And then we talked about freeze drying. So I think we hit them all, right?
Dehydrating, canning. We didn't talk about pressure canning really, but it's just like level 2 canning.
Yeah.
And you obviously
we have a separate episode on canning. So if people are interested in like diving in, well, they should get your book. But also if you want to learn more about canning, because there is so many steps, like you said, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
We have a separate episode on canning that people can dive into if you want to learn more. What's your favorite thing to preserve? Like what do you get so excited about in February to open up?
We're already diving into some things. Last night I made stir-fried veggies, and we had a little bit of fresh left over, but I opened up onions, freeze-dried onions, and some green beans, I believe. So, we're already there. Broccoli is another one that freeze-dries wonderfully. And it comes out, honestly, you can't even tell it wasn't fresh whenever you rehydrate and make it into a stir-fry. Sorry, side note.
And what about the species? So like when you're growing tomatoes, are you choosing varieties that preserve better, or you're pretty much okay with whatever you're growing? And then onions as well. Like are you going for a specific type?
So with tomatoes, we mainly choose tomatoes for flavor, but like at the same time we do like cherry tomatoes taste great, but if we're making sauce, they do not do well with sauce. Like it just doesn't translate well. So we usually grow like historically we grow mostly really good tasting heirloom slicers and use them for sauce, because that way we've got both the fresh amazing tomatoes and then nothing goes to waste. So like if we are eating tomato slices with dinner or something in the summer and we cut off both ends of the tomato, those go in a bag in the freezer, and then later you can make them into sauce. Where sauce tomatoes, we grow those also, and they make good sauce, and they are less moisture and more meaty, and all of that is more efficient. But in the end, after you've cooked it down, like whatever. And
The first one that comes to mind as far as growing a specific type of a produce for preserving, the first thing that comes to mind is potatoes. Russets, things that are really high starch, aren't the best for some methods of preservation. If you want to slice like scallops or canned potatoes, you want something a little waxier, like Kennebecks or
Like Yukon Golds.
Yukon Golds. Thank you. That's what I was trying to think of. You know, your big baking potato russets don't preserve as well unless you want to just go ahead and make them into mashed potatoes, like ready to eat, and then freeze dry them. That works great. Then you've got instant potatoes in a jar or a pouch, and you can just rehydrate them, kind of like a box of instant potatoes from the store.
The same kind of thing with onions. Like you can grow onions that store well, and that you can just keep the whole onion for months. Or we grow onions that taste really good because we want the super sweet onions, and then we slice them up and preserve them. They can be frozen or freeze dried or dehydrated, and you get your super sweet onion flavor without.
Interesting. Okay.
Without having to worry about the storage.
You don't have to worry about because they don't store as well.
That goes back to your goal, like what you said, like your goals.
Right.
What are you going to have the root cellar where you're really keeping, you know, the things in their original form and just wanting them to store longer, or are you doing it for flavor where you can freeze dry or something like that? That's really interesting.
And it's a balance. Here it is at the end of the growing season in December, and we've got squash and pumpkins on our table right behind our computer. There are still crates of sweet potatoes over here that you can't see, and potatoes.
200 pounds of sweet potatoes sitting next to us.
Wow.
So, you know, we're balancing it. We do preserve a lot. You know, having diced and freeze dried sweet potatoes is great, but fresh ones are
and they keep for months. And since sweet potatoes are harvested at the end of the season, we can usually get through 3 or 4 months before they start to grow and do whatever sweet potatoes do.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I'm thinking about this in terms of like, how would I start my journey here? When I think about what I go to the grocery store for the most, it's potatoes, because my husband's Irish and he eats like 2 potatoes a day with his breakfast, and onions and garlic. So figuring out, but I don't grow those things in my garden. We just go to the grocery store for those. But if I think about like the cost savings potential, so this is inspiring me to figure out how to do some potatoes in grow bags this year and preserve them so that even if we get 6 months in or something, you know.
And with potatoes, you don't necessarily have to preserve them through a method. The shelf life on a lot of these potatoes, if you get high storage potatoes, they're going to keep for months. Yeah. You'll have potatoes from your harvest for half the year.
Especially if you can keep them cool and dark.
Yeah.
Always our big challenge because we don't have a actual root cellar.
Yeah.
Or basement.
I'm in Florida. We don't have cellars. We don't have basements.
Yeah, so one thing you can do that we have done is get an old refrigerator off the marketplace or whatever and turn the temperature way up on it so it's in the 50s, and then you just have to kind of watch your humidity. But you can keep a lot of vegetables in that don't want to be refrigerator temperature and they don't want to be room temperature, but if you just get an extra fridge and turn it up.
We just went through the last of our apples yesterday.
Yeah, apples from August, September, somewhere in there. And they were still doing fine in the fridge with the temperature turned up. And we had potatoes in there also. And because they don't want to be like warm, but they don't want to be cold. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. There is so much to learn from you guys. And we barely scratched the surface in what you have to offer in your book. I mean, I can't recommend enough if people are interested. I think having a book that you can refer to and lean on, especially as your beginner, is really helpful. So where can people find you and continue learning from you, whether it's your book or your social presence? How can we connect with you?
So the book is on sale at wherever you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you have a local bookstore, they might have it. If they don't, ask for it. Keep up with us on Instagram and YouTube. Our YouTube, we try to put out some long form at least a couple of times a month. It's really hard when you're actually doing all the things to edit videos and keep up with that.
But we have a big backlog of gardening videos, so you can just start a couple years ago.
And then Instagram, it's just kind of Staci keeps the Instagram up, and it's largely almost a vlog of daily goings on here on the farm.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm so thankful for your book, to have your book as a resource as I venture into, I'm in Florida, so I'm in my gardening season right now. I planted my tomatoes in October. It's so bizarre and disorienting. So I'm excited to go on a little bit of a preservation journey myself. And thank you guys so much for joining me today. This was really enlightening.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
We appreciate the opportunity, and we encourage people to reach out to us too if you have comments or questions. We try to stay on top of that. Our website is also a resource. It talks about what we do here on the farm. It's gooseberrybridge.com, and there's a contact us on there that'll go to both of us.
Great. And we'll make sure everything's in the show notes.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks again for having us.
Growing joy.